What's up, guys? We are back. Fitness Profit Multiplier, Anthony and Jimmy. Today, we're going to be discussing how to interview to find the perfect trainer. And this is so top of mind because I actually interviewed somebody earlier in the week and he passed that process of it. He came in yesterday, did a great job. So we're probably going to go forward and hire him. So this is all top of mind for me. And it's funny because when I first started interviewing for people, I was always like, what do I ask? What are the magical questions to ask? And after a while, you kind of get immune to it. And it was funny because my manager was in there and she's like, after we interviewed him the first, she's like, you just grilled him every question. I'm like, yeah, because I just want to see if they kind of buckle on the pressure. So we're going to talk about all this and go through it. But yeah, the interview process, it's not a fun one.
No. And what's funny about it, Anthony, is that, this is top of mind for me as well, because we just had our first good interview out of like the last 5 candidates that I had for potential interviews in my fitness business. So if you're looking at the timestamp on this, it's December of 2022. Hiring is difficult right now. But we have specific questions that we ask these people, and we're in the exact same position, Anthony, where we have a new prospective hire who finally we have a guy who is rock solid, is a great candidate, and will be coming in for his next step in the process because he interviewed well, right? But before we talk about the individual questions that we ask prospective staff members, let's talk about the process as a whole. I'll kind of talk about mine, and Anthony talk about his, because I actually don't know his process all that well, and I don't think he knows mine either. But it's a good learning experience for both of us. So when we bring somebody in to interview, somebody applies through whatever platform it may be, whether it's a direct response on like an organic social media post, whether it's somebody from our list that we ask our client base, we say, hey, does anybody know anybody that's interested in developing a career in fitness? So we may get somebody from that. And then we may get somebody from the classic channels like Indeed or ZipRecruiter or whatever it may be, right? Online platform. So you get your leads in just like your leads for your business. And the first step is calling them for us. The first step is a pre-screening call. And that pre-screening call, basically, you ask them a couple of questions about their resume, see if their resume stacks up and makes sense. See if they make sense as a person in terms of the answers that they give you, in terms of them not being a crazy person is basically what you're trying to determine. And you're trying to determine that they're not lying, right, on their resume. So you kind of ask them about gaps in work time. You ask them about their experience at a couple of different places. You talk to them about what your expectations are for the role to see if it fits with what their expectations are in terms of scheduling and that kind of thing. So you don't waste your time bringing somebody in that can only work at 5 a.m. when you need somebody to cover 8 p.m. work, right? So the purpose of the pre-screening call is to set expectations, make sure that that person actually fits the role that you're looking to fill, and make sure they're not a crazy person, right? That's
yeah. I'm gonna jump in. And we do the same thing. And we have like the scripted questions we kind of ask them and things like that. But same thing. You just want to have a conversation with them and see if you can have a conversation with them. Because if you're on the phone with them and you're like, oh, I want to hang up immediately, they're not going to be a good fit. And you just want to flush out crazy. So the first phone call is just flushing out crazy, because guys, there are some crazy people out there. I mean, I'll never forget, I interviewed one woman and she came in and she was okay on the phone, which was surprising. And then came in, sat down with me and went into like her whole life story and divulged all this personal information and like personal drama. I'm like, lady, I asked you what your goals are in fitness. How did we end up talking about this? So clearly she was not a fit, and she went down like crazy rabbit holes. So clearly she was not a fit. And actually pretty funny because one of my other trainers had come in when I was interviewing her, and I said, oh, this is, ex-trainer who works here. And she gave him like the side eye and just said, "Oh, hi." And then like continued. I was like, whoa, that was really weird. So that was a big X. But yeah, like these are the things, like you're just basically in those first initial things. And I think one of the issues with trainers and gym owners is you want to find a trainer and you're looking for someone who's so proficient in the X's and O's. Okay, they have a CSCS, they have this certification, that certification. Tell me how you program. And they go into this whole big thing about how they undulate and all this other stuff, like trainer lingo. But if they're not a good person and they don't have a good personality, none of that stuff matters. And that's one of the keys. And I'm going to get into this kind of later. It's like all the X's, remember this, all the X's and O's of training and your philosophy and everything can be taught. I love actually to get people who have no fitness background to want to work with us, who are great people. Because when they're a great people person and they talk well and they're just approachable and friendly, they make the best trainers. And it's actually even easier to teach them our system because they don't know anything else. So don't look for, okay, this person has a CSCS, a bachelor's in this and this and this. Like none of that stuff matters. You want to flush out the crazy immediately though.
Right.
So I do a very similar first step. That's the first thing that we do as well.
It's the first step. You got to flush out the crazy, man. Yeah. And I agree. There's some value to both sides of that coin. Like I have great staff that have their CSCS and I have great staff that have a basic certification, right? But they're still above everything else a good person, a people person, somebody that you can connect with, somebody that's a good coach, right? You can have the best trainer in the world who's got, you could hire a celebrity trainer, whatever. Like if you guys were, I mean, I don't know if they're the best trainers in the world, but you could hire a person with a master's degree in kinesiology or maybe even a PhD, right? And they want to be a personal trainer. And if they don't understand how to talk to people, they're going to be a horrible employee. Like they could know everything about the programming and the training and all this. This isn't like a tech job, right? Like you're a programmer, a computer programmer. You're tested on every single skill you have programming wise. They don't give a shit what kind of person you are, right? They care about your programming skills. Where with fitness, it's exactly the opposite because they're going to follow your system anyway. So they just need to be a rock solid, good person, nice personality, inviting, friendly, charismatic. Those things make a way bigger difference.
Yeah. So our next step is if they pass the phone call and they're not crazy, our next step is we get them in for an in-person interview. And the questions from the phone call to the interview really don't change that much. It's kind of the similar questions. Maybe I'll go a little in depth, a little bit more on certain things. Those questions really don't change. But now you want to see how they react in person. Do they give you a firm handshake? It's funny, one of my trainers like firmly, that's how he judges people, by the handshake. And he's like, they gave me a dead fish handshake, no good of a client. And it's funny because it usually doesn't work out that way either. So this is kind of funny. But so you come in, their handshake, do they look you in the eyes? Are they defensive? Are they like weird when they do certain like body like things I can't really describe? But if they don't look comfortable in your facility when you first walk in to meet them, that's usually like a red flag. Like, I'm not saying they should take their shoes off and put their feet up on the couch, but you want them to be like approachable, like being able to adapt to certain situations that they're new to. And look for kind of like red flag signs. Like I said, if they don't look you in the eye when they shake your hand, or they kind of look away, or they're like very timid and shy away, and those things are really, really important. And then you have to see how they react. Like, it's funny because the in-person meeting is all about kind of watching their body language more so than the answers that they're giving to the questions. It's like, okay, now you ask them a really, really tough question in the interview. Like, one of the questions we always ask is, you're running 10 minutes late. You have clients waiting here. What's the first thing that you do? That's like one of our questions that we ask. And I'm always looking for just to see what kind of an answer they give. There's no really right or wrong to that. Obviously they should be calling, and we'll teach them what to do if they are running late and they shouldn't be running late. But like, one of the best answers I've got, and the person said it very quickly and very confidently, and he actually works with us today. I wouldn't be late. It's like, whoa, that was a good answer. And he said it so confidently. He's like, no, I just plan to make sure that I'm never going to be there. And then, like, you're kind of like, okay, well, what happens if it doesn't? If it does, and life happens, blah, blah, blah. But you just want to see how they respond to it. Do they have to take 5 minutes to think of an answer? Are they unsure? But it's
Right.
just, you get a good read on somebody based on how they're answering the questions and their body language, how they're sitting with you. If they're sitting with like in a defensive posture with their arms crossed and kind of tucked away, that's usually a red flag. They're very defensive. Why are they defensive? So I look for more of those things when I'm sitting with them, more so than the questions I ask.
And you have to keep in mind with that, some people are just nervous interviewers, right? So they'll be a little nervous. They're not quite opened up all the way, and this and that. So you gotta weigh that in. But if you're getting like straight up disrespect vibes, like somebody comes in and they look all greasy and they're not dressed properly and they're just kind of like disrespecting your space, or like that woman that Anthony interviewed where she like glared at the other that came in, like that stuff is totally red flag territory, right? Somebody shows up
And
late.
I will say this because you mentioned dress, and it's a great point. So the guy that we had come in who moved on to the next step, he came in a suit, which I thought was really, really a good plus, because it kind of shows like he went above and beyond. Like my other trainer who's with us, he didn't come in a suit. He's really good, but this guy came in with a suit. And we had another trainer come in with a suit too, and he was great too. He was a great people person, more so than he was a good trainer, which is why we hired him too. But that was just something I was telling. If they're coming in ripped sweatpants, that's a problem.
Right. And
go ahead. I just wanted to, that was just a good point.
As a note, back when I was a young man, when I was in my 20s, my early 20s, and I was still working for other people, I would come to personal trainer interviews in a dress shirt and a tie and slacks and the whole nine, right? And every now and then I'd interview with somebody and they'd kind of think that it was weird, but like, why not do it? It's not going to hurt your chances, right? If you're listening to this, you own your own gym, so it's not like a thing that you're concerned with. But if you somehow happen to listen to this and you're looking for a personal training job somewhere, it doesn't hurt to put on a tie and an iron shirt and just look professional. Like, it's a personal trainer gig, I get it, but at the same time, do not come and show up for your interview in some ratty t-shirt with greasy hair and just like look like you just rolled out of bed. Like, yes, it's personal training. Yes, you get to wear sweatpants to work, but it's an interview, right? Like, that's one of the things. So if we get into our questions that we actually ask, what I like are questions, one, that explain their resume. So why was there a gap in employment here, right? What happened in that time frame? What did you like about this job? What didn't you like about this job? Why did you only stay at this job for this period of time? Why did you stay at this other job for longer, right? So you look at their history, and if their answers build the story of their employment and build it in a way that you believe is good for your business and serves you and fits with you, then great. Like the guy I interviewed the other day, like, why is there a 6-month gap in employment recently from the last gym that you worked at? Well, I had to take care of some family things with like some sick relatives, and decided that it would be better for me to and I had to travel for it. So it was better for me to like quit and do that than try and maintain that job and not serve that business well. And I'm like, that's a really fair reason, right? And all the other employment was like, he worked one place for 6 months, but all the other employment was 3 years or more. So you know that he's a good candidate with these other people from that experience because he worked at other places for so long. It's not like he's worked somewhere 3 months here, 3 months there, right? That's kind of a red flag when you're looking at resumes. So detailed questions about that. Yeah, go ahead, Ant.
I like to also ask like what their experience was. Like one of my questions is, I should have pulled it up, but one of my questions is like, how did you like working with your manager at your last place? So I knew this kid that came in, I knew the gym that he was working for, and the manager's an asshole. complete asshole. I know the manager, so I know he's an asshole. So, and I could say that because I know him. But when I asked him, he didn't know I knew this, that I had known the gym and the manager and everything. So I asked him, I said, how was it working for X person? Oh, really great. He said nothing but positive things. And I'm like, that's good. You don't want someone that comes in who talks shit about your other place, about another place, because that's drama and they're going to bring that drama into your facility. So like I've had people who I've interviewed who like went into, my manager was such this and this and this and all this other like drama filled stuff. And like, look, no one's perfect, but there's always two sides to every story.
Yep.
So, and if someone's starting with like on the defense and things, watch their posture when they're explaining this stuff. Because now if someone's like hated their other manager, they'll wiggle in their seat. They'll kind of like move around a little bit. Like you got to watch like their body mechanics. And then they'll if they go down that rabbit hole, that is not the right environment. That's toxic.
Well, if they're bad mouthing a previous employer in an interview, it's not a good sign for what's to come if you hire them, because there's probably a good chance that, like Anthony said, there's multiple stories to any situation. And if they're talking about multiple situations in which they didn't like their manager, it could be a sign that there's a problem with them and not a problem with their management, right? They have a problem being managed in general. So watch out for bad mouthing, right? Like other employers. When you have a good interviewer, they may say something
or staff.
Yeah, exactly. They may say something they didn't like about a previous employment situation, right? But not in a bad mouthing way. Like, for example, you know, somebody says, hey, they worked at a bigger box, like a 24-hour fitness, right? And they only worked there for a short time. And you say, oh, well, what did you dislike? Because we're going to ask them, what did you dislike about previous employment? What did you like about previous employment? To get these answers. And maybe they'll say something like, well, at 24-hour fitness, I didn't like the big atmosphere. I like more of a private environment for my clients because I can do better work there, right? Like that's a good answer. But if they go, well, at 24-hour fitness, I hated my manager and he was always asking me to fold towels, and I didn't want to fold towels because I'm a trainer and I have a CSCS and da-da-da-da. Why am I folding towels? It's like, you want a CSCS to fold towels in your gym or clean the bathroom or whatever, right? So I digress. We'll kind of move on to some of the other questions that make a bigger difference. Once you're kind of asking them what they liked and what they didn't like about their previous employment, then you're going to ask them situational questions. Like, explain to me a time in which you felt overwhelmed and how you dealt with that in a work experience. Explain to me a time where you felt like you didn't understand how to actually accomplish a specific task and how you handled it. Explain to me a time in which you dealt with an upset customer and how you handled that. Explain to me a time in which you overachieved for a previous employer and what was that like and what did you do, right? And so, and then obviously, like Anthony was talking about, we asked them the would you be late kind of thing, like how you deal with that and those kinds of things. But you want to ask them to come up with scenarios that they actually experienced in their life and explain them to you, as opposed to just asking like what they would do in a certain situation. Like, come up with an example. Tell me an example, right? And people that are, and you have to have like kind of a good litmus test for this, because some people, when you ask them those questions, they make stuff up in the interview, right? They'll make up a story, they'll lie. You can tell if somebody is lying or somebody's actually reciting a story from memory, right? Because they're reciting a story from memory, they're going to have kind of these like little chuckles here or there, this kind of looking up into their forehead, this like trying to remember a specific detail of it, like, oh yeah, we did, and then they're kind of doing this thing. But if somebody's lying about it, their like story is so like ironed out and succinct, and like they just answer it in such a like quick professional fashion, where like this and this and this and this, and it's like, is that a real story? So, but you want real stories out of these interviewers because it allows you to have a window into their personality. And once you're done asking those, you're going to move on to personality-based questions, like what's the last book they read, what they like to do for fun, all this kind of stuff. And then you'll ask them kind of a couple of theory-based questions, and then ask them to sell you on them. And that's generally how we interview.
Yeah, we do the same thing, except we also grill them with hours and what their hours are going to be and what they want to do. Like Jimmy mentioned this earlier, but that's like usually we sit down and talk about that in person. Okay, what hours are you available? What are you looking for? You know, those are important questions, obviously, because they have to fit your needs. So that's that.
Right.
And then from there, if they pass, and we do the same thing. So from there, if they pass that test, what I have them do is I have them come back to shadow. Like you're just going to come in for an hour and a half. I just want you to see and experience what goes on here. You're not doing anything. You're just saying hello. You're not working. You're just coming in. You're just watching what goes on to see what. And again, I want to look for what they do when they come in. But I'm telling them, and it's true, I want you to see if you can handle this, right? Like this is different than what most places are. I want you to see if you can handle it. So they come back in, and then there's, what am I watching for? Are they actually greeting? Now I told them they don't have to do anything, but I want to see what they're going to do. Are they greeting people? Are they talking to members? Do they say hello to the staff? Are they talking to the staff? Are they standing there like this and just standing there? So one time I had a kid who made it past this point. He came in, he was just shadowing, and for him, he was going to be the morning guy. So I wanted to just test if he was going to be able to get up. So I said, look, I want you to watch the morning shift. So come here at 6 a.m. and just come and watch for an hour. So came in at 6 a.m. While the shift is going on, his mom calls me. Hey, did Jimmy come in? I'm like, yeah, is something wrong? No, I just wanted to make sure that he was there. He didn't even get the job yet. So needless to say, he did not make the cut. But because if that's drama already, I'm not dealing with that. But this is what I do the next step. And then from there, I will evaluate, okay, this guy looks like a potential good person. He was good with the members. He was friendly. He was talking. He was moving around. He fits. Let's sit down, and then we'll go to the next step from there. So that's usually my next step. And it's good because sometimes when I tell people to come in, the other thing I do is I actually give them homework. I tell them, hey, listen, create a program for me for this. I just want to see, I'm not looking for a right or wrong. I just want to see what your philosophy is on how you would approach the situation. So they'll come in, I will talk about all that stuff. They'll go on the floor. And then from there, I'll make my decision. And then if they fit the bill, they come back. I talk to them. I say, okay, look, I'd like to go forward with you. Let's set up an appointment for the next step. You come in, you fill out all the paperwork, and then they would go right into their internship process to learn our system. That's basically how we do it. That's my next step. Yeah. And that's unpaid as well. I'm not paying them for those hours. It's just, again, just to see if it's a good fit.
Yeah, so there's a couple of shifts that you start with, right? Like we like to actually run them, and we may change this a little bit, but we like to run them on 2 shifts before hiring them. And I think that may be a little bit overkill. But we want them to give them exposure.
Do you pay them?
No.
Okay.
So, and thinking about it, it may be a little bit overkill because it's kind of a big ask for somebody you're not paying. But I want to give them exposure to either side of the schedule, right? I want to give them exposure to both sides of the schedule so they kind of know what the difference is. And it's like, okay, to do that, I want them to kind of work that whole shift. But at the same time, it's the process that we've gone through up to this point. But, it may be better for us just to do a couple hours on each shift. But you kind of want to give them some exposure to either side of the day too, so they can know what those different personalities are like and that kind of thing. And from there, we used to have them do a little more homework, like build programs and case studies and do that kind of thing. We always have our interns do that are coming from university. But when we have somebody applying directly for like a paid position, we typically just have them go through the shadowing, and then the next step is draw up an offer for them, call them up, tell them what the offer is, or tell them they didn't get the position. And then we typically have a first 90 days compensation rate. And then after the first 90 days, the compensation rate goes up.
Yeah, we do the same thing.
Yeah, to what their consistent compensation rate will be. And we explain to a new hire, we say, hey, look, in the first 90 days, I mean, we're in Washington State. Washington State is an at-will state. So there's no like 2-week notice or anything like that. It's like somebody can just quit. They quit. Somebody wants to fire somebody, they just fire them right on the spot, right? There's no like notice that's necessary or anything like that legally. But what I like to say with the new employees to set the standard is I say, so for the first 90 days, this is a probationary period, right? The first 90 days, we want to see if you're a good fit for us and we're a good fit for you. At any point in those 90 days, if you don't feel like it's a good fit, let me know. We'll part ways. No big deal. I will do the same for you, right? After that point, we'll have structured performance improvement plans based upon reviews if there's a termination happening. So there will be a trail of, okay, this is why we're no longer going to work together moving forward, you know? So you have that structure and you set that structure up and that expectation so that they know what to expect, you know what to expect, and then they do a good job in the first 90 days, then they continue to stay on and they stay loyal to your company and increase their pay after the first 90 days. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody. And that's how we like to do it.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing that we do. We have a structured curriculum for them to follow for the first month. And typically we'd like to try to get trainers on their own by the first month. I think that a month is good. I mean, 2 weeks is just not enough time to get them up and running by themselves, but I think a month is a good enough time where they'll shadow, the head trainer on that shift will be with them the entire time. But first they're shadowing and watching and just kind of helping out a little bit. Then they start to take over the session. And then by the end of the month, they're fully doing the session and the head trainer is kind of like in the background watching what's going on. So that's kind of like the way we kind of structure them. And I think a month is a good enough time to get somebody like really up to speed to see where they're at with things too. And that's how we hire. Exactly. Very similar, man. We thought it was going to be different, but it's pretty similar.
I know. I thought it was going to be different, but that's the process, man. I mean, we've added some things and changed some things along the way, but and we have a general curriculum for people to follow, just depending on their experience level and stuff like that after that point. We've added some things, taken some things away. Our internship is a little bit different than our hiring process, but kind of similar. Our interns kind of have to do more homework to get into the internship, but yeah, I mean, it's very similar stuff. So if you guys want to have your ideal trainer join your business, you might have to kiss some frogs along the way. But as you go through this process, have a dialed in process. It's not just having somebody come from Indeed, having them come in for an interview and then hiring them on the spot. That should not be how it works. There's processes to this interview process because you need somebody that's good. Okay. And if somebody's going to jump through your hoops, they're more likely to be a good candidate. So you want to have hoops that they need to jump through. Don't just hire the next warm body that you see because you're working so hard in your fitness business, right? It needs to be the right.
I'm glad you just said that too. And I would also say that one of the things with this too is try to hire earlier. It's tough, and we're struggling with this as well, Jimmy and I, where we're at, because our gyms are like, we talked about this on previous episodes, but like we're stacked, we're good. But having someone in the wind waiting in the wings, waiting to come on is just extra insurance for us to not have to worry about staffing being an issue. So you might have to, at some point, you might have to overstaff, but you never want to be like, damn, my trainer quit. Now I got to go work those sessions. And now I got to hire somebody, try to onboard them. And you're doing all that work. You want to try to avoid that at any cost. And that is an investment in your business for sure. Because if I have to jump in and start doing sessions, the business is hurting because now the business isn't growing. So always try to be ahead of hiring and always look for good candidates wherever you go. I think I told the story on this before, but I went to a restaurant and the waiter was excellent. He was really good. And I offered him a job. I told him to come in and do the interview. It didn't work out, but still, it's just like always be looking for that next hire. And it doesn't always have to be in a gym, at a gym, or even a fitness trainer at that point. Because you can always pay for somebody to get their certification. So, and look within with clients too. Clients always make the best trainers. Always. All right, guys, if you need help with anything else in your business, just click that link below. We got free trainings in there to help show you how to get more clients. You can book a phone call with us to help you grow your business. And you could even join our Facebook group, which is a free group, which we're looking to help like-minded gym owners just like you get to that next level. But until the next time, Anthony and Jimmy, Fitness Profit Multiplier, we are out.